to the Webinar Talk Show. I'm Liz Green.
And I'm Tom Singer. And Eliz and I founded the Webinar Talk Show because we believe that webinars, they can be better than a talking head over PowerPoint.
And Tom and I have spent the last 6 years doing this sort of work. And in fact, one of the first times we got to do a hybrid event, we had a very special experience with our guest today. One of the things that I know I like the best about hosting a hybrid event is that spontaneous person in the hallway interview. We had a note from one of our at-home participants that said, I saw Jeanne Robertson walk by. Is there any chance that Jeanne would come and be on the show? And in 2 hours after the next session, we had her on the show, which is amazing.
That is the great thing about doing hybrid events is you can merge who's there live in person and share those people with the at-home audience, even serendipitously.
It was a wonderful thing that we were able to do. So we're just delighted to have her on the show today. Jeanne Robertson is, in my book, the queen of humor. You would find her on XM Radio. She's wildly popular on YouTube. And right now she's entertaining us live from her back porch on a regular basis. She has continued to have a thriving career for decades. We are delighted to have her here to share some insight on why humor is important and how to maintain a career over years. Welcome to the Webinar Talk Show, Jeanne Robertson.
Welcome, welcome.
Hey, y'all. Good to have you on. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's not every day that we get to invite someone who I consider to be a legend onto the Webinar Talk Show.
Absolutely.
I'm a legend in my own mind. Is that it?
Oh, you're a legend in our hearts.
Thank y'all. Appreciate that. I love it. I've been in it now 57 years with signed contracts. And I love what I do. What can you say?
So, Jeanne, how did you get into the business of speaking that long ago? There was barely an industry for professional speakers.
No.
How did you get started?
We didn't even have a cassette tape. I mean, we had no, my first promotional piece was run off in the school mimeograph machine with the purple ink, you know, just a piece of paper that I would show people. But when I was 19 years old and a rising junior in college, I'll give you the fast version, I went home one weekend and entered for the first time in my life ever a local beauty pageant, my hometown, Graham, North Carolina. 6 of us entered, and back then pageants were huge. It was like Americans got out, we were on television, and I won. And then 2 months later, I went to the Miss North Carolina, and there were 84 young women who had won their locals. It was all on state television, live television, because you only had 3 channels back then, so everybody was watching. And then I went to the Miss, as we say in the South, the Miss America pageant. And I did not win, or I would have told you that first. But one of the things that was the requirement was you had to drop out of college for a year. Nowadays, most of them take a sabbatical. They already are 25 or 26 years old and that kind of thing. They already have a job and travel and make speeches. And pageants take a lot of criticism. I'm the first to realize that, but some of it's justified and a lot of it is not. And it gave this 19-year-old who turned 20 that year an opportunity. Are you ready for this? Eat your heart out, to make more than 500 little speeches in 12 months.
Oh my
goodness. And I developed a reputation of being funny. And the JC let me have a lot of airtime the next year. And I crowned the next Miss North Carolina, and the following week I spoke at 3 conventions in North Carolina, and I just never looked back. So for me, I took an opportunity that I hear some of the young women say, I didn't know I was going to have to go and make these speeches all year. I thought I was going to be Miss America. I took an opportunity and I turned it into an asset. I would have to say the pageant. And we ran it like a business from the beginning. I had a contract, signed contracts, and this kind of thing. So it was a good opportunity. And I think a lot of people who have opportunities in their businesses to be the one up front or emceeing a program or doing something like that, and they don't take it. And you don't always get paid a lot of money to do this at the beginning, but there are always opportunities to raise your hand and volunteer in those situations. I think it was Ira Hayes who was with National Cash Register, and he spoke for that company for years, our first national speakers president. And then finally, everybody said, why don't you stop working for them and just come and make the speeches? So he took that opportunity to speak for his company. So the opportunities are out there if you really want to do something.
Well, I know there are a lot of people who are funny or are considered funny speakers, but you have a different take on humor and why it's important, especially in a corporate environment. Can you share your thoughts on that?
Well, I do. People always say to me, I just wish I could do comedy, and I don't even think I do comedy. I'm a humorist, and I can tell you the difference later if you want me to. But the thing for me is that I know some funny people, y'all do too, on stage. They're hilarious. But if you're working with them on a project, they don't have a sense of humor necessarily. And I think there's two different things. You might not be able to develop comedic timing, but you can develop a sense of humor that is an asset for you. And we've all worked with people who are not fun to work with, and that can be developed. So when I realized I really might have the first thing, the timing, the stories, and I had developed a way to write my own stories. When I told people about it, they would come up afterwards and say, I wish I could do what you do, but I don't tell any jokes. And I'm thinking, I'm not telling jokes. I don't know. But the point is, I said, if you can roll with the punches, are you trying to develop a sense of humor that will be an asset, or are you trying to be funny? Two different, we've all worked with people that don't have a sense of humor, but they talk about it. So when I could, in the early years, I could be funny, but when I realized the corporate world needed more than just an after-dinner speaker, then I had to develop points, and they were the steps to developing a sense of humor that are an asset. And they're real simple. I mean, there's nothing deep here. And but I do think if you want to if I were speaking to graduates, and I don't like to speak to graduates, you only get about 10 minutes. But I would say to them, people in your office will keep you from being successful and not even realize they're doing it if they don't like you. And I'm not talking about trying to be the office clown, but rolling with the punches are a different thing. So I've always looked at humor as two things. It turns out I do have the timing and the ability to tell stories and make people laugh. And yet, well, I can give you an example. I was in the Atlanta airport and we were all stranded. You know how that goes. Everybody.
Back when we used to fly.
Yeah, back when we used to fly. People were furious. They were stopping flight attendants trying to get somewhere, pilots trying to get somewhere. When are we, blah, 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 blah. And I was in my gate area. I was so busy looking for humor. I had a tablet out and a pencil. I looked at the body language of everybody in my gate area, and I could tell I was the only one that wasn't upset. And the reason I wasn't upset is I viewed it as an opportunity to find speech material. I always write down anything. If I saw a group of people over there laughing, I would move to go listen to what they were talking about. I mean, that was the way it is. But that's when I realized that it was an approach to the way we live our lives. You either live looking for humor and trying to see, and if possible, if you can hang around with people that have that kind of an attitude. It is a compliment to me in a little southern town when people come back from a convention and call me, people I barely know, and say, we got to tell you what happened. We thought of you. This is the funniest thing. I would rather them say that than say, I heard something bad about somebody. I thought you'd want to know that. So in your office situations, in your company situation, you get known for what you want to hear.
So,
and I
Jeanne,
think always, yeah.
So it's really interesting because you're talking about this difference between sort of being a comic and having a sense of humor, but also you've talked a lot about storytelling. And you've been doing this for, you said 57 years. In the last 3 or 4 years, the word, tell your corporate story and everybody teaching everybody how to tell a story, it's become such a big deal. But you've been doing this for longer than anyone else. What is it about storytelling that really matters?
I do. I know knowing how to tell it and where to put the punchline. And what is, we always say, know what the audience has to know to laugh before you get right to it and stop and say, oh, there's one more thing that you need to know about. Well, they've given it away then. And so I don't know why I figured this out, but in the 60s, in the 1960s, I was speaking a lot. And I was telling stories about being a 6'2" contestant in the Miss America, as we say, the Miss America pageant. And it served me well. I was a basketball player and people just laughed and laughed. In the 1970s, I had started emceeing pageants every weekend. I was out there, which means I got to throw pieces of material into the show between every talent. And if it didn't work, then you just would roll on. And so in the whole thing, my stories switched. My stories for the pageant went from being a contestant, because I'd just been in that one little group of them, I hadn't been but to being an MC and what I saw happening backstage. And there'd be a big birthday cake, and I knew they had one of the contestants hidden in there and was going to scare the audience. I mean, and then you tell about these things. And then by the time I got to the 80s, I had a child, my husband, and I don't think you have to have a spouse to be a success in professional speaking or a corporate world, but if you got one, it helps a lot if they're supportive. And I had one that was saying, tell me stories, look at this is great, go, go, go. And so I went and I switched to a junior high student and traveling. Irma Bombeck owned the suburban market. She had every idea she had done, but the catch on that was I wasn't a suburban wife anyway. I was traveling 25 days of the month. So I'm talking about airline, checking in hotels, corporate events, convention, and I had a market for those. By the time I was in the 90s, I'm 76 now, almost 77. Y'all are supposed to say, oh, no.
No way. Unbelievable.
Impossible.
There's a problem here, Patrick. Come hit my computer. Did y'all lose me?
No, you're still with us.
There, okay. And so in that point, I was in, my approaching 60s.
We lost the video, Patrick.
We
lost the video.
Okay. Hey,
she's back. All right.
Shazam. And so I mentioned in a speech just my husband, Jerry, and I said, my husband, Jerry, and I said, well, actually, a lot of people call him Jerry, but I call him LB for left brain. And the reaction in the audience was so great. At that point, without the little computer everywhere, I thought, let me off this stage and get me to a tablet and pencil, because I had hit on something. And so then for the next so many years, it was on beginning to age, and I found a market for me. Then about 12 years ago, so all of these are stories, but in my mind, if you want to win a pageant and tell those stories the rest of your life, that's fine. I have no problem. But I don't want to be a one-trick pony. And my clients, there is a saying among speakers, it's easier to get a new audience than get a new speech. I disagree with that. I want to go back and I want the new speech. And I want to be able to write clients or tell them I can come back and guarantee you I won't repeat. I just did a convention for my 8th year and had not repeated a story yet. And it was like when they were aging with me, this kind of thing. So if you're in speaking, maybe people have to look at their other careers if you're not in speaking, but look and say, are we doing this the same way? I'm not going to be on, I don't need a website. I'm not going to do this. I've got my customers regardless. No, you don't. So you got to try to keep up. And that's what I've tried to do. Oh, and then 10 years ago, I had an opportunity to start doing theater shows, and that's about what I'm doing now.
Well, and you bring up an interesting thing in the fact that you're about to turn 77 years old, and you're also about to hit, oh my gosh, surprising, but you're also about to hit 1 million downloads on YouTube.
Yeah, I'm at 99 million now. So.
Oh my God, how many million?
99 million and like a third. And so I'm hoping that I'll hit 100 million.
100 million downloads coming up really soon on YouTube. That's not something you see everybody who's 77 doing. In fact, I think a couple of years ago, some of the tagline was that grandma went viral.
A television station that put it out, nationwide, a little syndicated show called me Grandma Gone Viral. And they said to me, can you believe this? They said, does this hurt your feelings? Do you want us to change that? And I said, change it? No, don't change it. May I use it? May I become the Grandma Gone Viral? Yes. Now, let me tell you, you can bite the head off of a snake and swallow it and get 400 million just like that. Or put your finger in a baby's mouth. There are other ways. But I'm proud of those because I found and created the material. I produced the tapes. As I say tapes, and the younger people say tape, no tape. And I performed it. So I can get those 1/3 of a penny payouts.
There you go.
Ways, because you're not going to retire off of it. But it lets people find, and it sells tickets to theater shows. So, but I did not embrace everything and haven't yet in the internet. I look at it and decide, is this worth my time? Because this is and that isn't, and do enough to be in there. And I also market to people in my age range. They come up to me after every speech and say, I have family stories. I want to do what you're doing. And that's when I would say to them, then, well, how are you recording them? How are you putting them down? Then they'll say, I've got stories, but I don't want to be on stage. I said, but are you passing them on to your children? That's the secret, and that's the way most of them could get started. I just love what I'm doing, but I work at it every single day.
Well, and I know that you do. And one of the things I said to my husband this morning, because when we were walking out, I said I was very excited to get to interview you today. One of the things that I think as a professional speaker, that every time I watch a video or even see you doing the Facebook Lives that you do from your back porch right now, it is a lesson in the craft of storytelling and being a professional speaker. Because even though it seems like you are just throwing it out there, I know that you're not. I know that you have crafted this so carefully, but it is delivered in a way that it feels like you're just talking to me.
May I point out, if you really are in it for the long haul, I look for funny stories that I can embellish, stretch a little bit, add to, and I want them to happen around me, but it doesn't have to be about me. I can give the funny line to a lady across the aisle in a plane, a mysterious lady, so that I won't just say, I said, and I said, and I said.
Right.
Just tell the story. If it's funny, they'll enjoy it. So I know also that sometimes I can hear a funny line, just a line. And I can then, if I can keep that line in my mind long enough to get to that tablet I was telling you about, now the computer, I can back it up and I can make up a story that leads up to that line. And remember, then you learn things like what you have to know is, what does the audience know for that to be funny? And make sure that you work it in. Sometimes you might work it in the opening remarks and get a laugh. Now, the comedians call that setting up, recall, this kind of thing. For me, I'm setting it up, and I'm going to get my bigger line maybe an hour later, and they'll say, "Oh my gosh!" and it hits them. I just coattailed off of something way back here, and sometimes you just hold that line and wait. And one of my favorite stories is a story. I got the story, and I held it for 29 years. You know, the one, The Mother's Revenge. And I got that punchline 29 years later, and I said to myself, Eureka. And my friends would say, do you not tell this story in your speeches? There's no punchline. Yes, it is a funny story. There's no punchline. There's no punchline. And then all of a sudden the phone rang one day and I got a punchline. So you have to be patient. And because I am known as being funny, I have to be funny, because I say Jeanne Robertson, humorist. This means when I get there, I better be funny. I tell younger speakers, don't do that. Don't put that weight on you. Say, Jeanne Robertson, a speaker who uses humor. And then if it's not that funny, just to go on to something else. And so my points, I choose my stories before I even choose the points. Everybody
Mm.
works their speed. I mean, I've been there 6 times. So I can't tell these. I can't tell these now. And the theater shows that you go back to every 2 years. After 4 times, you can, because those audiences change. But in the convention world, they will say, oh, no, our audience turns over. No, it doesn't. How many people talking about your officers turn over? But the people come up to you in the speech and say, oh, I was here the last 2 times you were here, and I'd better have some new material. And let me point out, when I was emceeing pageants every other weekend back in the 60s and in the 70s, the judges go from town to town. There's some people that just love it, and they're good at it. They know the talent. They know whether that's real talent or somebody like me playing the ukulele. And so I begin to look out there every week and see the same people.
Mm.
And they thought I was hilarious, and the new audience thought I was hilarious, different town, that kind of thing. But I began to take it as a personal challenge and say to them, okay, when you hear me tell one tonight you haven't heard, take your pencil and just let me know. So they're sitting down at the front and they're waiting through all the stuff too. I tell a new story, they go, like that. So I became complimented, because they would say, we know we can count on you for new stories. And I was early 20s, but I thought that's the whole secret.
So
And
Jeanne, you
mhm.
have been speaking for a long time, and the last decade or more, you've been selling out these giant theater shows all over the country. And then COVID hit. And so
Somehow.
giant theater shows stopped. And Eliz made reference to it. You started doing these on the porch videos from your back porch of your house. Did you have any idea that these were going to be as popular as they are on Facebook and YouTube?
No, I had to be pushed into it at all, because I came home the second week of last March, like everybody else, and the next day North Carolina shut down and everything else. And if you were a person who was just booking convention speeches, because I stopped emceeing pageants after so many years, I'd rather use the rehearsal night and this pageant night for 2 speeches. I mean, I could figure out money, and I'd say, I need to get out of this and get into something else. But we knew right away, Patrick is doing it again. I don't know.
Yeah, you're still with us.
No, y'all are not with me. There you go. So thank you. I appreciate it. People say, who is this? This is another speaker who lives in town, and he's an example. If you had all conventions, you were wiped out for the year. Your income came straight to a halt.
Oh, I can relate to that, Jeanne.
Oh, yeah, we all have. And so what better time than to keep a sense of humor? So for me, that means the last group that are going to open up are going to be theaters. I mean, so we have postponed and we've postponed and we've postponed. And there was, it's just fun. But I wanted to keep the people who like my work and were having those tickets that they had purchased postponed. I wanted to keep them engaged. And so what we did was the people in Nashville, the Nashville people who book my theater shows, Al McCree, y'all know him through NSA probably, so they do that. But I wanted to keep them engaged. And so we started Jeanne Robertson live from her back porch. I'm sitting on the back porch right now. Yesterday, no, let's see, this is Monday. On Saturday, we did my 21st hour straight. I mean, that we had 21 weeks. And of course, I said to everybody, I'll do this. So we had so much fun. I'll do this. And then, till this COVID is over, I thought it'd be about 5 weeks. We're still doing these shows. And we've gotten better. We started off with a phone. Now we have 3 cameras back here. We're all on camera. Patrick's running all the stuff, because what has he got to do? We're all sitting here coming up with questions. I'm on a weekly radio show that streams everywhere, because they called me and said, can you be on this for us and be funny for all this, an hour every Friday? And I said, I don't know. And they said the same thing to me. What are you doing? You just put on Facebook, you're not going anywhere. And that has really pushed me. I put myself in a position it pushes me to do the radio show. And so I'm enjoying it. I'd love to be back on the road, but when I go back, what we're doing this is the 1 hour videos. You can watch them if you want to. The shows, they send me the questions. So all of a sudden, a group of people are sending me by the thousands questions and watching. And I'm so, oh, well, I can tell you what happened. And I'm looking at Tony, my assistant of 42 years back there, and she's going, where did that come from? So we've gotten a whole group of list of stories that I wasn't using. I who look for all of these things, I wasn't using. So I'm just writing down, thinking, holy cow, look at the stories. And one leads to another one. And I have guests come on and they talk about funny things. And then I'll say, let me tell you what happened to me. And I'm thinking, holy cow, that's in my brain, but not coming out of my mouth. That's a waste of my time and money. I've got to figure. So I'm ready. I'd love to go back and open up a show and do all new material. To do all new material for a 1.5 hour show probably is scary. But I have a place, incidentally, in every speech or show where I have a hole and I drop in a new story or new lines or whatever, but I know that the one behind it is going to be a winner. So if it doesn't go over, and they don't always, that you can work on it. And people send you ideas, not professional speakers. The law is you don't use anybody's material, and I agree with that. Right. But when somebody writes and says, let me tell you what happened to me, Ma, and when we were on a trip, and it turns out they left me, Ma, with this thing and just left her. I mean, it's like a movie. So the point is, I'm a lucky person in that my hobby, which is finding humor, is also the way I make funds. So and I'm lucky that the book came out during COVID and it sold really well.
Can you tell us the title of your book, please?
Don't bungee jump naked. It also has under there and other important stuff, but you don't get it out because people start laughing. Now, can I give you an example? Okay. The first books came. We had ordered. I said, if you get them from me, we'll sign them. 3,000 books. I can sign 3,000 books. And the books came, and they didn't wrap. Something was wrong. Something was wrong. It was wrong. We had the sample. Everything was fine, but something was wrong. And so jokingly, I said, well, we're going to sell them anyway. And I had put in the front that I was dedicating the book to my husband, left brain, but that for the left brain readers, I was putting some errors and punctuation incorrections and misspell words and things for them to find, because it would make them so happy to be looking for it. So I announced that, and I said, unfortunately, we have a whole lot in this. Of course, this is the first edition, and I wasn't planning anything. I said, this is maybe that might make this book a limited edition. This is the collector's edition with the errors, because we had gotten in touch with the company, and the new books were, that was corrected. So, and I said, so if you want one, you can buy it, and we'll ship it to you, but it's going to have those errors in it. But you may have a limited edition, like I'm a John Grisham or something. This is a story. And do you know, the people poured in. We want the first limited edition with the errors. And I said, y'all, I was just joking when I said that. No. I want 8 copies, and we want them all with the errors. It was like I stumbled on something and we sold them. Now we have the good ones coming out. And they say, do you have any of the ones left that had the errors? That's what I want. My friend got that. And so to me, that was a total mistake, but a good lesson that you just keep going, figure it out, be honest, and say, let me just tell you, this book's got some errors in it. See if you can find. Oh, no. We had people, we said, see if you can find all of them. Holy cow. We had one woman in the library, and she said, I will find every error. So next time we have a book, we'll just hire her to edit.
Right.
And that's
and they don't care. They said, no, we would rather have this. We've never had like the copy before the copy. So we're just having a good time here, and I hope other people are too.
Well, Jeanne, as we wrap up this interview, you said something a minute ago that was really interesting about how you had to push yourself when it came to doing the Jeanne on her back porch and doing the radio show, and even kind of pushing yourself to release a book that was printed wrong, and it all sort of works out. There are people half your age who are scared to push themselves. So what advice do you have for people?
Well, I don't want to waste my time. And for me, for example, I have branched out and done a lot of things, but nothing that didn't help my speaking career, because I am focused on the speaking career. For example, I took 7 weeks off and was in Steel Magnolias and found out I don't like working with other people. You know, if I think of an ad lib, I don't want to stick to the script. You know, this kind of thing. But it was a valuable lesson to do that. When I had knee surgery, they said, you will be out 6 weeks before you can travel. And I said, okay, what 6 things can I do that will let my followers know that something new is coming every once a week? These type of things. I've done things in town here locally that I shouldn't be wasting, but I'm not wasting my time, because it all rolls back to helping me better at what I do. I'm not going to go out there and start dancing ballet. You know, I'm 6'2". I took ballet, but the handwriting was on the wall one day. They came in, tossed everybody a tutu and gave me a 4-4, and the whole thing, blah, blah. So I'm just saying, I don't go off on a tangent and think I can do this. I'm going to go over here and learn all about whatever. Not if it's going to help my speaking career, because I enjoy what I do too much. I'm lucky to have somebody else in town. We don't live in a big town. So to have Patrick here means I can call and say, I don't know what these people are talking about. Well, you know what? And I don't really want to learn. You get over here and help me. And please. So I do a lot of odd things, but not really. Tony says, and my assistant keeps me on track. She said, and how is this going to help? And what are you doing? And we do things that help other people raise money. But I don't start saying I'll get on the telephone and call and ask for money. I say I'll do a show, and you can have all of the profits to go to that hurricane relief, whatever the thing is. And that's the way you can always be promoting your career and helping do that. And if I can do everything in my county only for free that needs money, then that keeps me from serving on committees. Oh, I am on I went to Auburn, and I'm on the board of trustees of Elon University. And that one thing is probably maybe doesn't lead so much to speaking help. But their School of Communications has been nice to help me with things too.
That's great.
Oh,
I knew that it was going to be great. I knew that we were going to learn so much. I didn't know that we were going to get so much business savvy. Should have known. So really appreciate you being with us. The Patrick we've been talking about is Patrick Henry, who's been a guest on the show. Go back and watch that one.
About 3 weeks ago, he was a guest here on the Webinar Talk Show, and you can find that both on YouTube, and you can also find it on our Facebook page, The Webinar Talk Show.
And y'all were recording it on my back porch. I said, when am I going to be on the show?
Well, we had to fit in your busy schedule. But
thanks.
If somebody is watching this and said, well, clearly we need Jeanne to help us, where would they find you?
To speak for them or help them become a speaker?
To speak for them.
Okay. Oh, well, Jeanne Robertson. No I in Jeanne. JeanneRobertson.com.
And you can find all of her amazing videos on YouTube. Search for her.
Thank you.
And almost 100 million downloads on YouTube. Let's get there before that. Let's get there before your 77th birthday.
Absolutely.
Well, you never know. It'll happen when it does. So y'all have a great day and keep laughing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do want to say, for stress relief, I can recommend no better thing than searching "Don't Bungee Jump Naked" and watching that. That will reset you with a little laughter.
Thank you.
You can find Tom and I at webinartalkshow.com. We'd love it if you'd like our Webinar Talk Show Facebook page. We are
And
here on, yep, go
And
ahead.
if you liked this interview or any of our other interviews, please tell a friend, because most of the people who are watching these, when I ask, how did you even find it? They say it was a friend who told me you're doing interesting things, because webinars, as I said in the beginning, webinars don't have to be a talking head over PowerPoint. They can be engaging, useful information in a fun conversation like we just had with Jeanne Robertson.
Absolutely.
May
Thank-
I put your link to this show on my Facebook?
Of course
We would
you
love
can.
Okay, great.
Of course you can. We'll be back on Wednesday with another wonderful guest, although it's going to be hard to top this. But thank you so much for joining us. Have a great rest of your day.